now.
Welcome to another edition of Midnight Cable. I'm Giman.
And I'm Brandon. And in this show we talk about anime that we have watched recently, both new and old. This week's episode marked the very first time that we'll be talking about an anime series with over 20 episodes.
As we promised from last time, today we'll be talking about Baki anime from Netflix. Now, before we begin, it is important that we establish this rather awkward fact. Well, we've never actually seen any other Baki anime or manga before.
This was our first exposure to the series, so if our opinion might come across as lack of understanding, please do know that we are coming into this blind as we want to experience what it feels like to watch this without any prior knowledge.
That's right, Brandon. But we still hope that you enjoyed the video anyway, and if you do, please click that like button, subscribe and hit the bell icon to get more future content from us. It would really help out this channel. Anyway, let the madness begin! To give a little backstory of what the series is about with a brief synopsis, the story focuses on Baki Hanma, who during all his life has focused on training himself under his mother's guidance, not to be the strongest, but just strong enough to defeat his father Jujiro Hanma. During their first confrontation, Baki is completely curb-stomped, and his mother dies trying to protect him from his father. Since then, he has traveled the world, participating in underground dogfights in order to better himself, and to get revenge against his father. Or that's what the previous two series were about, or that's what the third season is about. But as for seasons 1 and 2, well, if I were to sum it up in 4 words, it would be manly testosterone-fueled insanity. I feel so pumped up. So Brandon, what did you think about Baki anime, the manliest anime ever made?
Jesus, chill down, chief. Anyway, my feeling for this show is that this show is insanely good. I mean, when it comes to the entertainment value, there are no other show like this. I enjoy every single moment of it. There are, of course, some bad stuff, mostly some very disappointing stuff at the later seasons. But I can't really bring myself to say that I dislike this show. But at the same time, I can't really say that I like it or love it either, because it's also just generic shonen. There's something that is not unique or anything special. If I were to describe my relationship to this show, it would be the same as my relationship to drugs. And by that I mean that it's bad for you, but you just got hooked in, you got high, and then you just got addicted to it, and as you watch more, you just want to see more highs and more insane, chaotic stuff going on the screen. And for the most part, Season 1 and Season 2 did deliver on that. It's just a shame that Season 3, just like any drug withdrawal, totally was a huge disappointment.
Yeah, that is a pretty good analogy. I mean, originally I was comparing this to junk food, since most of these martial arts anime that we see is just about consuming the fights, and you don't really care that much about the plot, since it's like a run-of-the-mill kind of thing, tropes that they use over and over again. But this is like where it kind of transcends that thing that we cannot really even call it a story anymore. It's like things that happen like that, and you just don't care. This is like one of those shows that you just take your brain out and just throw it in the garbage and just enjoy the wild ride. And I guess it would have been fine if the entire run would have been like that, but it seems like that this third installment is just sort of a change in pace due to the uniqueness of the fights, and when we hit the third season, it just goes to what the previous 2 seasons is about. I mean, I cannot really speak what the quality of the previous 2 series were, since we haven't seen them, but at least my feelings to the third season, where it just goes back to regular martial arts with rules, it kind of feels not so unique anymore, at least to me personally.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. Season 3, the insanity and the creativeness of the fight that was in Season 1 and Season 2 just completely disappear, and all that's left is just generic tournament art and a very disappointing art that follow with a very disappointed character who we really want to see triumph, but we get to that later.
Yeah, in fact, it's important to us to to establish that why we feel the way we do, and I think it's important that we first talk about the story. I mean, things that happen. I mean, I cannot, in good faith, call this a story. I mean, after all, we're just talking about crazy shit happening one after another. Let's just go through this, okay?
Yes.
Let's try to make some sense out of this.
Yes.
Story. So things that happen in this show, well, it all begins when Baki is called into, principal office when this old guy, who apparently is this fight promoter from the previous series, he just suddenly starts talking about some weird explanation how there are these 5 inmates from across the world that just are suddenly heading towards Japan just to challenge Baki because it has something to do with biology, synchronicity, some a real life explanation that the author tries to use this bull explanation that it's like you just take it at face value because it kind of the first 4 episodes is basically establishes what series is about, just pure insanity. Because I mean, story-wise, the first 4 episodes somewhat make sense, coherent storyline-wise, because first these inmates start meeting the Baki one by one individually and some of the other fighters before they gather into this underground fight arena, and then where the official match has been declared to begin with no rules and everybody can just attack each other whenever they want. But after that, that's when we completely lost the track of things. That it started, being just this crazy things happen again and again with interruptions and like that, and you're just there that I don't care anymore. I'm just gonna enjoy this. And I mean, Brandon, can you really could you explain to me what exactly is going on in this story? I mean, things that happen, because I'm completely lost.
I don't want to be like overcritical when it comes to explaining the story or think about the story too much, because it's like you said, this is like one of those Star Wars sequel trilogy where you just shut down your brain and enjoy the spectacle. And then there are a lot of high entertainment value you can get out of this show. This show is insanely fun. These are some of the most creative fights that I've ever seen. It's so good. And what I really like about this is that the author actually did some effort in researching about martial arts and these different techniques, as well as human autonomy, to get some sensible pseudoscience bullshit explanations how these things work and how these stuff work. And there are, of course, these very passionate, insane moments, like in the middle of a fight between Spec and that Yakuza guy, I forgot his name. They just, scene just transition to like city of New York out of nowhere. And then there's this, bodyguard that just come in and check on the Statue of Liberty, and he saw that, has punching holes on its legs and it's like nearly falling apart. And then we'll later cut back to, just revealing that, it was Spec who did that damage, and he's preparing to do the same against the Yakuza guy. And I love it because I love moments like that. This, genuine moment of, pure insanity and chaos, explaining how strong and how inhuman these characters are. But I just feel like it's kind of a bit overstayed welcome and a bit repetitive as the series goes by, especially in season 3.
Yeah, you can say that again. I mean, it's kind of like that even though we didn't really care that much about the story because it was just, insane spectacle one after another. But I think what makes some of these explanations in the middle of the fight slightly frustrating as the time goes on is the fact that not only do they happen in the same fight, I'm not exaggerating, happens like 2 or 3 or even 4 at times. And what makes it so frustrating is that usually these explanations are, showing that why exactly is this guy getting the upper hand or somebody else, is about to be taken down. But the fact that all these fights have these, so many interruptions that some other fighter appears or somebody escapes or somebody uses a pitch move or something like that, that there is no proper conclusion with the exception of Spec, and everything else is just interruption one after another, and it just makes you think that what was the point of all these explanations if we're not even gonna get a sort of a proper conclusion why somebody defeated someone, because when you think about it, most of these defeats are just about that somebody's already at the end of their rope, somebody's already tired, and then just taken down, not by any explanation that what was the one that defeated them, but nothing else.
Yeah, I also there's also one thing that I dislike. There is no stake at all in this story. I mean, stuff that happened.
Yeah.
Because like characters are shown to get like critically injured, like when that eye patch guy Dopo Orochi got his face blow up by Super Hobo Santa.
Yeah.
He's just come back later later in the series with some scar on his face, and that's it. It's just a few days for these Baki character, and like there is like at no point at all in the story do I feel any tensions or feel like the feeling of dread for any of these characters that are participating in any of these fights, especially with the other like very very minor side character. I mean, because in typical other shonen story like this, these are the type of character that would just be killed off so that the main character got the motivation to get revenge and stuff. Here they do get injured, and then the other characters do get motivation to get revenge, but then later on they just recover like nothing happened.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in the world of Baki, it's just about that all these fighters are monsters, and they somehow go through this period of recovery and then coming back stronger than ever, or having more determination that just makes them more manly and more badass. But I kind of wish that there would be some motivation, because when you think about some of the other manly shows from the old days, because after all, this series began in the somewhere in the 90s. There are these other types of manly series like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure or Hokuto no Ken, where the main character does get motivated, and with the death of their friend or their ally like that, and that just makes the fight more impactful. But the fact that these characters, especially many of these side characters we haven't seen in other series before, or their relationship to these characters that are the main focus, you don't really care when they get injured, especially when there is no consequence of that. So you are not really emotionally invested in any of these fights, other than that it's just crazy shit one after another.
Yeah, and you don't even get invest in them as characters as well, because for a Netflix show targeting a wider audience, 80% of the people watching this are not even Baki fan or haven't watched the previous series before. It does have attempt to bridge the connection by having like 30-second explanation who these guys are and what they did during previous arc. But then it gets to the point where some characters just show up without any explanation, and then we don't know who he is. Like this one guy, random guy with a katana. He just show up and just to finish off one character, and that's it. Like we don't even know who he is. But apparently he's important to the story.
Well, I can give the show this credit for that approach, because from what I understand, many of the people who worked on this anime had worked in the previous Baki series. I mean, for example, the director apparently is known for directing these really ultra-violent shows before, and he had kind of returned from the retirement just to direct this. And while I can respect the fact that this is just a continuation from the previous series, that it's kind of like that, yes, your long-awaited sequel has come, so it's like it's kind of catering to the fans. But at the same time, I kind of feel like that if you were going to go that approach, wouldn't it also been fair, for example, to include this sort of a recap animated one, like the beginning episode to explain things? I mean, I can understand that over-explaining stuff that, who these characters are over and over again might make the narrative even more convoluted. It might even extend these seasons, with even more episodes. But, some kind of recap episode before the first episode, like a prologue, would have been nice, The story does get a bit, more serious at some point. During the end of season 1, after the fight with the poison hand guy, Baki does get, poisoned, and he's like nearly dying, and like that, oh my god, some drama and tension. Oh my god, I'm supposed to care about Baki now? Like, all this, intense moment, and then his girlfriend's crying and stuff. Like, it does, build up and, and lead up to this, question that, oh my god, will Baki get cured? Like, is he gonna die? And then season 3 just happened, and in just 2 episodes,
it's just completely undone all of that tension and dread, for the previous 2 seasons established by having Baki fight against this weird guy with, another poison hand that has the yin poison that counterattack against his yang poison. And then, his girlfriend Tears just, make him has an erection in the middle of the fight. And all of that element combined just, revive him and, cure him of the poison. So I guess we can start by, segueing a bit and talking about season 3, why it is a disappointment to us.
Yeah, I mean, where do I even begin with season 3? I mean, I guess, we can say that to its credit, it actually has these 2 different story arcs, like even split like in the half in the middle, so it's kind of easy to pinpoint when exactly does it transition. I'd say the first half is decent. It doesn't really reach the highs as previous, season 1 and season 2 had. I mean, it does have some of these crazy moments, such as, Baki drinking this, 10 kilograms of sugar and water or something like that. And of course, Juju's fights against that old guy. But most of the fights in that season are either, by other characters or in the second half by Alai Jr. and Baki also has barely to do with that, but we'll get to Baki in a moment. But I think what makes season 3 so disappointing is that it did have promise to, to become more interesting, especially the second half, which focuses on Alai Jr. But then when you take into account that, with all this build up, with Alai Jr. being this rival to Baki, the show is, coming out with this epic confrontation, more epic than even season 1 and season 2 had. But all it does is just leading up to the viewer is a huge disappointment by pulling the rug out of them and just, if I were to describe it in just, one image, it would just be a middle finger to our face. There's no other word to describe it. And that's why I don't feel comfortable of giving an overall rating to season 1, 2, 3 overall score, because season 1 and 2 are like completely different entities from season 3 due to the fact that it has this different formula to it with the lack of rules or any kind of martial arts where it's just about dog fight to the death. That I think I kind of wanted to give it individual scores just to showcase how much I prefer watching season 1 and 2 again over watching season 3, which I'm never gonna do again. I guess if I were to rate season 1 and 2 overall, because they're just one continuous story, it would be 9 Super Hobo Santas out of 10. And as for season 3, I would give it 5 crying Alai Juniors out of 10.
Yeah, when it's come to any form of media or of entertainment, or either it be comics, music, video games, or anime or movies, there's always this one type of, shows or series or games that is just focused purely on entertainment. And that, you don't even need to think so much about it because you just enjoy the fun grind. You just want to watch more and get that stress away. And you just, feel so good when you watch it. And that's exactly describe season 1 and season 2 of this show, which is why I'm gonna give it, the highest possible score ever. A 10 out of 10 Super Hobo Santa, because I do account this entertainment factor as well when I add it into the score, because story is nothing, like everything about the character is nothing, but the entertainment value is just high up the roof, and the stories just get crazier and crazier with its creative fight and its insane insanity, which we will be getting into deeper when we talk about the character that in those scenes. But as for season 3, yeah, I agree with you, it is just a 5 out of 10 because, it's just generic shonen tournament arc followed by a very disappointing arc that has nothing to do with the overall structure of the Baki story, because literally after this arc, it starts out with the next series, Baki Son of Orcs, and that's it. Like, we had no continuation to the story that was set up earlier or any resolve to the character that was involved in it. And we even got teased that the 5 prisoner might return. Oh, spoiler alert.
Yeah, not to mention, you'd think that it would at least continue with Alive Jr. having this redemption arc, but from what I understand by reading a little bit that where it goes from here, not only does Alive Jr. never appear again, but neither does, that love interest, the girlfriend appear after this other than from cameos. But so it's like season 3 didn't happen and was completely pointless. But I think speaking of, we've mentioned about these characters many times. I think it's a time that we start talking about them more in detail.
Yes.
Characters! This Baki series kind of interesting when it comes to characters. We've had many different main characters before that we usually begin this section with. We have this, really bland wood like Kuro from Inspector. Then we have these really interesting ones like
the one from the next anime we're gonna talk about. Oops, spoilers.
Oh yeah, you'll find out next time. But Baki is, I'm not talking about the series, I'm talking about Baki Hanma,
Yeah.
He's kind of an interesting case in this case because he clearly has character, that he has this established previous history with many of the characters like that, and I can assume that the previous 2 series have more of a role when it comes to his character growth. But when it comes to this series, I cannot really call him a main character, which is weird because if I were to sum up what exactly is his contribution to the to all these first 2 seasons, it would be first he briefly fights that spec guy, then he encounters some of those other ones, then he fights this Russian guy, then he fights this poison guy and loses, then he fights that Russian guy again, then he fights after having this intense sex with his girlfriend, which we'll get to soon enough, he fights poison hand guy and Russian guy. And that's it. And when I say fights, those are not really fights. They are just, small, violent alterations with no proper conclusion. And Baki doesn't even finish off any of these, characters. And in fact, it goes all to the other characters, or his allies, or some nameless ones that only appear at the end.
Like the dude with the katana I was talking about. Like, well, who was that guy? Can any Baki fan, tell me who that guy is? Because I'm clueless.
Yeah, I mean, which is weird because this show at least, tells slightly like 30-second or 1-minute explanation when a new character appears, what exactly they did previously in previous series. But that guy, he just comes out of nowhere and we're just clueless and he's this strong that, oh, you didn't try to foreshadow it before and like that. And even then, it still takes another character like Jujiro to finish that fight off. But I mean, sure, Baki does, get sort of a more character and some more action in season 3 to give it credit. I mean, his first fight is probably the only fight that I would consider a real fight because it does involve his character development with his girlfriend. But after that, it kind of goes downhill with him because the other 2 fights, yeah, I'm serious. He only has 3 fights in season 3, which is just, the second one is just
5-second curve storm.
Yeah, and the third one, it's also just a 5-second curb stomp, except it's worse because it's set up with his rival, which we'll talk about soon enough. But I mean, I understand that these Baki series have these multiple different names, like the first series is called Baki the Grappler. But you think that this third series, when it's called Baki, would be actually about Baki, but it's not. It's I'd say that this has. This series should rather be called Retsu or something because even Retsu has more screen time to develop than him. But Baki is like sort of if I were to describe him, he's kind of like Ichigo from the final arc of Bleach, where he barely does anything. He's just a spectator and barely does anything while everyone else has to finish everything off. And then to the final conclusion, he just comes to finish the one last antagonist with this one move, which is exactly what happens to Alive Jr.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Like, Baki in general as a character is just so incredibly generic. He's just shonen protagonist with like one simple goal of defeating his father, and his whole motivation, his whole personality of the entire show is I need to get stronger. That is his whole personality. Every single conversation, every single moment he has with any one of his allies, be it his girlfriend or, Retsu's, or it's just like, yeah, okay, I want to get stronger so I can kick my dad ass. That's it. Like, that's his entire character. And I have to say, I expect more from him, But it is safe to say that, even though Baki is lackluster, the 5 death row inmates, Jesus Christ, those are some of the best characters I've seen in a shonen manga or anime in quite some time.
Yeah, but just to so that we don't make this video as long as it already is, I think we should only talk about the 2 of our favorites. But I guess if we were to talk about the other 3 inmates, briefly, there would be Spect, who we talked about before, Ivan Drago or Sikorsky, and Poison Hand guy, what was his name?
Ryoko Tanagi.
Yeah, in fact, most of these times we just call them by nickname, with the exception of Spec. I was originally going to call him R-Face guy, but Yuji already took that title, so I'm just gonna call him Spec. I mean, that's how I feel about these 3 characters. They are not that compelling, with the exception of Spec, but the problem with Spec is that he gets taken down very early on as the first one. But to his credit, it's like maybe the most satisfying fight that has a proper conclusion, because after all these inmates embody the fact that they want to have the taste of proper defeat, and Spec is the only one that embodies that. But as for the 2 other inmates, one is someone who has a rather flat personality and gets taken down like a bitch, and the other one has these really cool techniques, like not only the poison hand, but also it's kind of established that he's like the true the strongest fighter that Baki has ever faced at that point, and he's like this sort of a rival, sort of a force that he has to overcome. But even then, the only purpose he really serves to Baki is just to set up the events to season 3. In fact, the only 2 positive things I can really say about these latter 2 is that the Poison Hand guy purpose is to set up the events that happen in season 3, but then again, that could also be a bad point, because I didn't like season 3. and as for the Russian guy, Ivan Drago, I think the only thing I liked about it was this one scene where he goes with Jack into this, phone booth, where there's this small guy just having this talk with his girlfriend, and then they start suddenly fighting, just because, that Ivan Drago wants this advantage that, there's this small race and Jack just goes in and they're just punching each other. Just
so crazy and awesome. Yeah, I mean, even with the weakest character in this show, you can have a lot of entertainment value. But I guess when it comes to top of the chart, when it comes to entertainment value, there's no one else we can talk about except for Dorian, or as we would lovingly, call him by his nickname, Super Hobo Santa.
Yeah, Super Hobo Santa is like a absolute joy to watch. I mean, I think, at least to my personal opinion, he probably has the best character arc to him as a villain, because he kind of ties into the lore of Baki more than other villains, considering that his real full name is Dorian Kaio, and Kaio in this show refers to these, like the strongest fighters that are usually in this clan that originate from China, and how he kind of ties into Retsu's character due to the fact that he couldn't properly be named Kaio, Retsu, because he could never surpass the power that Super Hobo Santa has, that when that he made that giant hole like that. But the way he fights, is some of the most creative ones, that you think that he already is out of tricks, but then he runs into the. In fact, could you explain to me some of the things he does?
Yeah, not only does he have hidden Garrett, that this tiny piano string wire that can cut your hand off, or even slit your throat if you're not careful. Not only does he have a grenade that he stored inside his stomach for some reason and just vomit it out, or implant explosion on the bottom of his fist that he can slam into that eye patch guy face like that. He has the coolest fighting technique I've ever seen. Hypnotism. He just clapped his hand, and then the other dude just got into this state where he's fighting an imaginary version of himself. And not only that, he topped it up with traditional Chinese Baki Kwan, some Kung Fu, some Bruce Lee shit. That's just awesome.
Yeah, which kind of leads into, to what happens, during the climax of his story, where after he causes this sort of a confrontation with Retsu's dojo, and he's kind of purposefully ambushed in this amusement park, and then he meets this, amusement park owner where, by the way, he's already dressed, red. That's why we call him Super Hobo Santa, because he even looks like a Santa, and he's led into this, horse ride at this teacup ride, where,
It just, yeah.
Just look at this. Look.
Like Jesus, the look on his face is so like.
And the laugh that he has, like this, small child, and you think that's like the pinnacle of, the madness in that, but no,
No.
Immediately after that, he just goes into this fucking. Roller coaster. And then, like, if you want to put your life on the line, are you willing to put it? But that as we fight here, and then they start fighting as the fucking roller coaster just moves like it's goddamn. I mean, how does the author just come up with this crazy stuff? I mean, you think JoJo is crazy? No, this is way crazier.
Yeah, like man, this is just batshit insane. It's like busted out the window, like every single trick in the book, and I love it very much. And I especially love the way that Super Hobo Santa story arc conclude, because it's tied in very well with Retsu. Because Retsu kind of tell him that even though you have been victorious across all of your fight, you have never fight fair. That's why you've never won any single one of your fights, which caused him to have a realization that his whole entire life was a waste. And it just make him snap. His whole mind, just turned to that regress, to that 1-year-old child that you just said, Candy.
Yeah, which kind of leads to a rather good conclusion, because even though the conclusion to his fight may have not been satisfying with interruptions all the time, but the way his character arc concludes, and how Retsu just kind of feels sympathy to him, because he did admire him as a sort of the best Kaio ever there was, and he just said that, yeah, let's get you all candy that you need. And that's like the only time where I actually cared slightly about things that happen, I mean story, that was so satisfying to see. But from what I understand, while Super Hobo Santa's character may have been my favorite, you did say that Doyle, I mean gay Dio.
As if Dio wasn't gay enough already.
Yeah, what had your favorite character, compared to Super Hobo Santa?
Yeah, because like even though compared to Super Hobo Santa, who has every single creative fighting trick in the book, Doyle, techniques and his move with the concealment blade and stuff like that on his hand, and how he just fight like a common street thug using fire and stuff like that. It's not even that creative. Like I mean, it does feel to me like a bit of like a 3-notch down compared to Super Hobo Santa. But at the same time, what I really like about Doyle is that unlike every single other inmate, he does have a really good proper redemption arc set it up for him.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, when I first, saw him and these first few episodes that he was part of, I didn't really care for him that much, because he was, this sort of a typical type of assassin who just ambushes, but he kind of lacked character, sort of like Sikorsky. But as time went on, and not only did his fights get more creative, but he did actually start to show more character, with that scene where he fights against Retsu being enraged for the fact that how dirty he fought against his comrade, and disfigured his face, decides to do exactly that, this karmic justice. But even then, their fight doesn't really end well, where Retsu gets injured. That's but for some reason Doyle actually starts to feel honor for the first time and decides to defend him, even as some other people try to attack Retsu, and there's this cross trying to feast on his corpse, and he just stands there on a guard like some fucking watchdog. and then for some reason they suddenly start forming this bromance between each other.
Yeah, and it leads up to this one. Oh my god, I can't even express it in words. I mean,
問題ない。15メートルまでなら。渡ってるよ川。
Like Jesus Christ, like this scene, like it's the embodiment of season 1 and season 2 Baki craziness. Like I can't even say how much of a masterpiece in terms of entertainment.
Like,
yeah, like this is the cherry on top, like the creme de la creme. Like Jesus Christ, that's one scene. Like, and yes, like I said, even though it does have that ridiculous scene, it does live up to very good romance, with Retsu. It does live up to a redemption arc where Doyle is constantly, get knocked down and beaten by this one other guy. I forgot his name. And then he learned in humility, in defeat, that maybe it's time to turn a new leaf. Maybe it's time to return back to the country. Maybe it's time to start learning how to fight like a real fighter. At least that's what he planned to. Until Poison Hand guy just just blind his eye for no reason, and then he was captured by Olivia Biscuit, this black guy, and then that's it. His story just ends there, snuffed it out. But I guess in a sense it is karmic justice, because after all, at the end of the day, these are death row inmates that kill people. They don't really deserve some happy ending.
Yeah, it would have been too predictable, and the fact that they did all this just to take a taste of defeat, I think all of them kind of get their sort of a karmic justice, even if they try to turn over a new leaf. And and it's kind of a shame that even though their fights are really creative, the actual fighters who fight against the eye patch guy, the judo guy, the Yakuza guy, that while they do have these cool techniques that contributed to it, they don't exactly have these interesting personalities. I mean, at least that was shown in the previous series that we could care for, with the exception of Retsu.
Yeah, I mean, well, I would say there's also Olivia Biscuit, but that's mostly because of the fact that his introductions.
Let's just show
Let's just show him like this. this big black, African. this like the fact that they don't even try to censor it. Like it's like that scene from Boondock. I'm the health inspector. And it's just flopped out like that. Yeah, well, but yeah, I guess yeah, but I guess we can come back to Retsu, because yeah, I do agree with you. I mean, Retsu is the only character in this show that has a lot of character development. I don't know why. Maybe in previous series he's also one of the central character, or the fact that the author just loved Retsu so much, because majority of the cool character moment and the interaction and bonding of friendships in between any of these characters are done by him.
Yeah, I mean, what can I really say much about it that we didn't already say? I mean, Retsu is this really cool guy, and I think he's probably one of my favorite guys, with a ponytail. But I guess when it comes to the side characters, the ones who are not fighters, there really isn't, that much to talk about. And in fact, there's only 2 characters that are even worth talking about in any way. There is, Baki's girlfriend and, his father. In fact, I think we can actually talk about them in the same breath, because there's only one instance where we can really talk about these 2, which is the sex scene that I mentioned. In fact, I don't think we're comfortable enough to show the entirety, that we can just show a few images here, because after all, we don't actually want to get, age-rated here. So, but what we can show you is that, some of the dialogue that they say, and I mean, well, how do you describe it?
Yeah, it's like Jesus. It's like sex is like a fight. You touch this woman this way. The penis entered the vagina this way. It's like I mean, it's fun, it's creative, and I love it. It's also explicit, like you said. It does serve as a purpose for Baki developments as a character. And for the most part, I think the girlfriend is just that, you know, a plot device character. She's just there to cry and, you know, be worried about Baki and, you know, give him some motivation speak or, you know, support him or, you know, just, you know, give him the reason to fight and leaves. That's it. You know, nothing unique about her. As the same can be applied to, you know, Baki father as well, Jujiro. What else can I say besides the fact that he appeared like a false ghost in front of their bedroom randomly and then just tell him, son, you better fuck that bitch and you fuck her many times as you want until, you know, until you cannot come anymore.
Yeah, best person beast talk ever. I mean, and besides that, I think Jujiro is the main prime example in this show where there's just multiple examples about how goddamn strong he is. But besides that, the only thing he really has to him as a character is to showcase how many different, you know, meme rate our faces can really make the camera. I mean, seriously, how has his faces not been used in memes before? I think somebody should start doing them because.
Yeah, I mean, he gets to the point where he's so insanely strong that you can't even, like, you know, believe that any stake at all in any of his fight. But I do give credit to season 3. At least one good point that it has is that at least the fight between Jujiro and that, you know, King of Kaio old man was super entertaining, and for some, you know, aspect, it does retain the charm that season 1 and season 2 has.
Yeah. That was probably the only fight that I really liked. Well, besides, you know, Oliva's fight against that, you know, guy who had his, you know, hands, you know, in pockets. But that was more about, you know, how fucking freaking funny it was. But yeah, Jujiro highlight with that. I mean, it's kind of like what the conclusion to the season 3 should have been, which I guess we should start talking about the thing that caused this thing to collapse on itself, which is none other than Muhammad Ali, or rather his son, Junior.
Yeah, Jesus, like what else can I say about Muhammad Ali? Well, I guess I can start with the father. His whole reason for existing is just to showcase how strong Jujiro is and, you know, setting him up as final boss of the series. That's his whole entire existence. He's just an exposition character. As for his son, Muhammad Ali Jr., though, he appeared at the end of season 1 like this, you know, teaser kind of dude that, you know, oh my god, is he gonna be the, you know, the rival to Baki, that they gonna have like an epic final showdown at the end of season 3? Like, is it gonna be, you know, super awesome?
Yeah, I mean, because as it turns out, in this version of the story, Muhammad Ali wasn't, you know, like this sort of a heavyweight boxer. Then again, there is also this real Muhammad Ali that appears later in the series. But anyway, as for this version of Muhammad Ali, or Muhammad Ali, he apparently had, you know, this secret potential to be a martial artist, that he wasn't really a boxer at heart, that he was actually this martial artist, you know, that had the potential to have the strongest kind of fighting style. But due to the fact that he never had the chance to experience life or death situation, he never had the chance to perfect it. But when he started teaching his son, Junior, he actually started to embody that, and apparently he had mastered it. And it kind of sounds cool in paper, because I kind of get the feeling that the author has this really big love and admiration to Muhammad Ali as a fighter, because after all, he's the greatest boxer who ever lived besides Mike Tyson. That you think that, you know, he's kind of trying to set this up, this epic confrontation, that, you know, kind of love letter to Muhammad Ali as a character. But that's not what it is. It's sort of like the huge potential being wasted, you know, like ripped apart, that, you know, that it actually feels more like a spit in the face when you think about it.
Yeah, because after all of this teasing and shit, like, you know, it's just ended that way. I mean, Muhammad Ali, you know, in an attempt to coax Baki to fight him, to test out how strong he is, decided to, you know, try to woo Baki's girlfriend by, you know, proposing to her, and then, you know, try to show off to her that he is strong by, you know, going out and, you know, fighting against Baki allies and friends. He managed to defeat the judo guy and the eye patch guy. And then, but when it comes to, you know, facing, you know, Jack Hammer, Baki's brother, he just lost completely, and he get his tongue ripped out, because, you know, he wasn't ready to, fight to the death. He wasn't ready to willing to put his life on the line. And as this later show, the judo guy and the, eye patch guy also show up and, teach him that valuable lesson again, that he has to be willing to risk his entire living being to, achieve, victory. And that is also another lesson that his father as well show up later to teach him that, sometimes, son, you just have to, be more a fighter than you are. This fight is not just a boxing match. You have to think bigger. That like all of this character development, all of this humiliation combos that he spent his time going through, even showcasing that scene that kind of reminded me of the Rocky, that training montage where where he's like running with a bicycle. I'm not gonna say that neighbor stole my bike, and even like practice shadow boxing, where even though he has his broken fingers and stuff, like it's so inspiring. Like seeing all of those scenes, it kind of reminded me of seeing Naruto training after Jiraiya death. In Naruto Shippuden, it was really like I would say engaging to see from a character standpoint. But all I get from that is a 5-second curb storm from Baki.
Yeah, and not only that, the last thing we see about Ali Jr. is that not only is he crying like a bitch, his father, is like, son, I am disappointed, just walks away, and it's up to Baki's girlfriend to comfort him. And what's worse, he never appears again after that. And from what I read from the manga, he also doesn't appear again after that point. Maybe in some flashbacks or like that. And even the girlfriend is just makes these small cameos and doesn't have much role. And all I'm left thinking is, what was the point of all that?
Yeah.
In fact, the only thing I can really say what the point of all that is that the fact that Baki was willing to put his life on the line and he defeated this potentially strongest rival that he has ever had, which I call bullshit, just so that he could have a real final battle against Jujiro.
Yeah, I mean, with all that setup and the only thing that we get in the end was that he's just a punching bag for Baki, and I don't think he's even like the strongest fighter that Baki ever fought, because if I remember correctly, the show kind of said that in previous series, Baki already fought against the judo guy and the eye patch guy, and even beating his brother Jack Hammer at the end of that tournament. So the fact that all the three of these guys just kicked Muhammad Ali's ass like that, and the fact that Baki kicked his ass too, doesn't that mean Muhammad Ali Jr. as a character was a huge waste? Because Baki doesn't even really need to fight him, just to prove himself that he's strong enough to beat his father. He's already there.
Yeah, I can't think of anything other than this just being an excuse to show this, huge middle finger. I mean, you think that the middle finger is already big enough with, Ali Jr. being defeated, but the fact that we're even teasing to this final confrontation with Jujiro and Baki, which doesn't even happen, it's like, that. Are you trying to piss us off, or is this sort of an artistic type, approach that you're going with?
Yeah, like Jesus, it was such a huge disappointment, but I guess we saved that for the conclusion. But for now, let's talk about the music and animation.
Yes. Music and animation! This is the first time on this section where we literally have nothing to say about the openings and endings. I mean, I think you have, because there is this band that you want to talk about. As for me, what can I really say other than the fact that these are like the most generic kind of openings and endings I've seen in quite some time. I mean, just the stock images and the both two endings just repeating one after another, which is just running into the distance, having these few characters there.
And have some dubstep techno music blasted on all the way.
Yeah, I mean, usually when I watch an anime, especially when I have to watch it in repeated viewings, because I kind of want to memorize the feeling that I had for that music so that I don't forget it. But when we watched this show, I never could bring myself to to watch any of it. That I tried to force myself, but they were so bland and forgettable that I just said, fuck it, let's just go to the next one.
Especially the opening for season 2. Jesus Christ. Why? Why do you have to hire Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas as the performer for your, opening song. I mean, don't get me wrong here, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas fanboy. I mean, I know there are a bunch of you, but their music doesn't fit in a fucking anime at all. Jesus Christ. And all of the fucking anime that I've seen that has their opening songs in it, either it be, Hunter x Hunter ending, number 1. Brunhilde in the Darkness. Like Jesus, like their death metal, there's it doesn't fit this show at all. That is, I mean, yeah, sure, one can argue that it is, death metal is heavy metal, and this show is also about death and heavy metal. But, I mean, there are other better bands out there that music you can use. Just why you have to go with Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas? That's the only pet peeve I gave.
Yeah, I guess the only positive thing I can really say about these openings is the fact that, especially with that second opening in season 2, is that it's not as bad as Death Note season 2 opening. That's the only thing I can really say about it. But as for the general music itself in the series, I don't have any complaints about it. I think, this type of hype music that, goes through these fight scenes are entertaining to listen, and it's, the perfect one to fit it. But then, but at the same time, it's also nothing unique. But since considering how batshit insane this series is, I don't really have that much to complain. It's only small nitpicking, that's nothing unique. But it's perfect. It fits just so well.
問題ない15メートルまでなら
Yeah, I agree with you, and that also tie in with how effective they are used when it comes to this fight scene, because I think, not talking about how good this animation for this is a, crime itself, because goddamn, the 2D animation in this, series just looks so gorgeous. Like I said so many times before, this is a love letter to martial art, So some of these, animations showcasing the different martial art moves, the posing of the character, like how they do this, Bruce Lee pose or this kung fu shit, panda shit,
Yeah.
Yeah, like it looks so awesome and accurate to the real life, martial art moves that, real people use. And not to mention the facial expression that these characters had, the impact of the hit that also accompanied with the, really good sound design. Like, it just felt so hype and intense. And I think there is a lot of, effort, a lot of, research spent to putting all of this to life. I just hated the fact that, for some reason, majority of the fight in season 1 and 2 just sometimes has these weird 3Ds in between that just, look like, stick out like a sore thumb, because you can clearly see that, there are these 3D, character in the middle of a 2D fight. It doesn't look good at all.
Yeah, but when you think about it, this series is unique in a sense that it kind of reminds us of that old time which anime used to be. What I'm referring to are the character designs, which you don't really see in modern anime anymore, with these, hugely overly muscular men and these really detailed drawn faces. That it's more about, this youth taking the next generation, from the old generation. That, this type of art style, I think it's warmly welcomed compared into this modern anime era. That it's nice to see this change of pace, so that we don't get this, factory kind of, design anime all the time. And when it comes to the animation, I'd say that season 3 improves from the last 2 seasons, that because it made the smart choice of using 2D animation more than 3D animation, which it uses really minimally, so that it isn't that easily noticeable. But at the same time, due to the fact that there isn't that many creative fight scenes and crazy events happening, I'd say I actually like the fight scenes, the ones that are animated in season 1 and 2 better, because they are choreographed, much better with such creative vision. And while there is this occasional 3D animation models, which to some might be a bit distracting, but since I'm so entertained throughout the whole thing, it doesn't really bother me. So it kind of goes to show that even with the improved animation, if it's not something that makes you feel pumped up, it's kind of pointless. So while technically, season 3 might have a higher score than the previous 2 seasons, I'd still prefer watching season 1's and season 2's fight scenes over season 3.
Yeah, I do agree with you completely there, and that's also bring me to the scoring of these individual music and animation. And as for music, I would say I don't know, 7 out of 10. I mean, it does sound decent. The only exceptions are the opening and ending songs. I mean, they are just so generic and bland that I can't remember. But the overall whole soundtrack is also very hyped, so it does remedy that.
Yeah, I think I'm giving the exact same score as you. In fact, I'm not really sure whether I love it or hate it, so I'm just gonna give it 7 Retsus out of 10. But when it comes to the animation itself, despite my mixed feelings about season 1 and 2's events compared to season 3's fight scenes, I think I would still give it overall 10 Super Hobo Santas multiplied by 2. That's how much I love those scenes so much that because when it comes to animation, if it makes you entertained, even if there is some hiccups, I think it deserves that score, because I don't exactly want to be this sort of a stickler in the mud that says, yeah, there's this small animation error and like that, but I'm just gonna take that 1 point away. But no, I felt so entertained that 10 Super Hobo Santas multiplied 2, that's how it's gonna stay.
Yeah, I also agree with you. I gave it 10 Biscuits Black. Yeah, I mean, like what else can I say? So let's go to conclusion.
Yes.
Conclusion.
So in conclusion, I think the ultimate question is, would I really recommend this series to watch? Well, that's a complicated question. I guess what I
think so complicated.
You never can stop mentioning that meme. Anyway, I'd say I would recommend watching seasons 1 and 2 because they kind of feel like completely different in terms of tone compared to season 3. But if you really are looking to scrape the bottom of the barrel to get as much as testosterone and action-filled insanity, I'd say then if you are willing to take a shot at season 3, watch it until the end of the tournament arc, which is rather easy because it's like the half of the entire season, and then stop there. But as for me personally, if I were to ever come back to this show, I would just watch the first 2 seasons, because those are the ones that really entertain me, because it just tops itself over and over again, and then it reaches its absolute peak at the end, and it's a complete package for me.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even disagree. I mean, that is what I also say as well. And I mean, this first 2 seasons is definitely worth the watch. I mean, you can't ever go wrong with Baki. You can't even question the greatness that is Baki season 1 and 2. I mean, even though there's a lot of dumb story moment, even though there's a lot of shonen moment that I really hate, it just kept going back and forth with its craziness that it just keep topping on top of itself. That it's just so entertaining, and I can't even say how much I love it. But at the same time, I can't even say about season 3 at all with the same enthusiasm. So whether I like or dislike this show, it's a bit complicated. Complicated. I mean, I like I said in the beginning with the overall impression, I don't dislike this show, but at the same time, I don't think I like it or love it.
Yeah. In fact, considering the amount of difference in quality between seasons 1 to 2 and 3, I don't feel comfortable giving this series an overall rating, because they feel like 2 completely different entities. In fact, I'd say that season 1 and 2 are like completely different entity from the rest of the series, because I can imagine that the previous 2 series were kind of like season 3, maybe better than season 3. I mean, I don't exactly want to judge because I haven't seen it yet. We might come back to them at some point. But so I'm gonna just give individual scores. So I think I would give both season 1 and 2 together. I would rate them 9 Super Hobo Santas out of 10. And as for season 3, I think I would actually give it 4 crying alive juniors out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, you know, the same score is for me too. I mean, you know, 4 Ally Junior crying out of 10 for season 3. It was such a huge disappointment. Like, after all of that build up, all of that teasing, it was a massive letdown. Not even ending up with Baki fighting his father. Like, everything just felt like a lucid dream that, you know, you just want to wake up, you know, and it's just doesn't feel good at all in terms of, you know, storytelling and entertainment, you know, value. But when it comes to season 1 and 2, I gave it my 10 out of 10, you know, phone booth mashing, 10 out of 10, Statue of Liberty, you know, destroying, 10 out of 10, Big Black Car, 10 out of 10, Roller Coaster Death Ride out of 10, because this show is so awesome, like, but only for season 1 and 2. So I guess that's pretty much conclude what we have to say about Baki season 1, 2, and 3. Go watch it, you know, like I said many times before, you will be entertained. Next week, we will be covering another long series as well. This time also shonen, this time also 3 seasons worth of material. But we won't, you know, tease you, you know, or, you know, tell you in advance what show it is. You just have to wait and see. So until then, we hope you have a pleasant day. Try to watch some more anime, and we'll see you next time on the next edition of
The Midnight Cable.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for any new stuff. If you're interested of other future content, please click the links on the screen. I'm Giman, and I'll see you all next time.